Hi, I'm Jacqueline, and in this quick video, I'm going to show you how to make the simplest, cutest, easiest little sewing project. It's pin cushions made from our pre-printed panels. So these are great little gifts. You could put lavender in them and make sachets. Those also make great gifts. So let me show you a couple of our panels. These were done with the Joyful Spring panels, and there are 4 little squares that come in your panel. We have lots of other designs too. We've got these really pretty hearts. These would be great for that lavender sachet. You could put a little loop on it and make a door hanger out of it. We've got Christmas ones. So if you just imagine using some Christmas fabrics with these, invite a bunch of friends over, get some panels, invite a bunch of friends over, bring out the scrap basket, and just make piles and piles of these cute little pin cushions. Okay, I've got my panel right side up on a piece of scrap batting, and I'm going to take a strip. This could be anywhere from 1 inch to 1.5 inches, whatever width you want, whatever you happen to have in your scrap bag. This one is 1.25 inches, and I'm gonna line that up on there. And this needs to be the exact width of your panel. So I'm just gonna trim that off. I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm going to take this to my machine. So I'm sewing this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to backstitch here at my beginning. I'm going to backstitch here as well. I'm going to do the other side. So now I'm just going to press my strips out. And I'm going to repeat that process with a couple more strips on the other side of the block. And you could even use different fabrics for this. You could use all different fabrics if you want a really scrappy look on your pin cushion. Okay, I'm gonna take this back over to my sewing machine. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna flip these strips out. At this point, I could keep adding strips and make this bigger, but I think I'm gonna leave it like this. Now, another thing I could do here is I could add some top stitching around this block. I think I'll do that. I think it'll look nice, and I'm gonna use a matching coral thread. So I did that top stitching. Remember, that's optional. You don't have to do this because when we sewed our strips on, the batting was already sewn to the fabric. And because this is so small, this is a great way to practice your machine quilting if you would like. You could quilt this any way you want. I'm not going to. I want to keep this really simple, so I'm just going to leave it like this. And the next thing I'm going to do is just square this up and trim away my excess batting. Okay, that's done. Now I've got a piece of backing fabric that's just a little bit bigger than my square, and I'm gonna put these right side together like this. I'm going to take them to the machine, and the thing that you have to remember is to leave yourself an opening of a couple of inches so that you can put your stuffing in there. So I'm gonna start here, I'm gonna work all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to stop here, and I'm also going to back stitch when I start and stop my stitching so that it stays secure. When I get to this corner, I'm going to do a soft pivot. I'm going to do just one stitch across that corner. All right, I'm gonna trim away my backing fabric. You can use your rotary cutter if you want. I'm just gonna use my scissors. So I'm just making this even with the batting on the back. Now the other thing I'm going to do with these corners is I'm going to trim just the tiniest bit of the corner off. That will help to lessen the bulk in these corners when we turn it. You don't want to go through your stitching. You want to get pretty close to your stitching, but not go through it. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is carefully turn this through this opening that we left. And this is why that back stitching is so important, because you're putting stress on the seam right now as you push this through. And so if you didn't back stitch this, you would find that all that stitching could really come undone. So something that's helpful for pushing the corners out is just a skewer or something like that, a little dowel. And you can use that to carefully push out your corners. And we're going to press this. When we get to this open seam here, we're going to turn the edges in toward each other and press those in. Okay, now you can fill it with your choice of stuffing. I've just got some regular old polyfill here. You could use crushed walnut shells. You could use wool roving. There are a few different things that you could use to stuff your pincushion. And if you want, you can take that skewer again and push your filling up into the corners if you need to. If you're using something like the crushed walnut shells or pellets, you'll just use a funnel. Okay, I kind of work that around. I think that's good. I don't want it to be too fat. It's got to sit nicely on my table. So I think that looks good. All right, I'm gonna hand sew this together. You could do it on your machine. I just think you get a much neater finish if you do it by hand. So I've got just some needle and thread. I'm going to take my needle through that little fold in the fabric, because there's my knot at the end, and that's gonna hide the knot inside. And then once I do that, I take a pin or a clip and just pin that together. It's just easier. It's easier if you've got those edges already held together for you. And then I'm just going to do a really simple whip stitch. And when I get to the end, I'm just going to make a loop, knot that off. I like to do a double or a triple knot there. I just keep making a loop and putting the thread through the end, putting the needle and the thread through that loop. And then when I think I've got a really secure loop, I take this and I bury it back down into the fabric. And I just trim that really close so that the thread end gets buried inside.